Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I have two of the new MAC Connecting Color eyeshadow palettes. So we're going to be doing a try on and review of these. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. All right, so I was really excited to see MAC come out with new palettes. I know palettes aren't the trendiest thing right now, but I still love them. And I am still the biggest fan of MAC eyeshadows. I do have a whole palette of singles here, so I really do love my MAC shadows, but I was really excited to see them release some new palettes in a new format. I have two of them here. They did come out with some larger ones as well, but when it came to the larger palettes, I already have a lot of those shades in singles, whereas these two were completely new for me. So these palettes retail for $30 each US, and they are both made in the USA. There are some larger palettes, like I mentioned, that are about $51 US or 59 Canadian. So the first palette we'll look at is the Embedded in Burgundy palette. Very, very beautiful. I love this new packaging. This is really nice. It's got like a black plastic packaging with a raised photo here. Really pretty. So then you get 6 shades and you do get a mirror. But this is very beautiful. I'm mostly curious, I think, to test out the different formulas. So let's look at some of the swatches. Okay, so the first shade is, really pretty. Then we have Naked Lunch. I do believe these are all pre-existing shades in their singles lineup. So just know that I don't think these are all brand new shades. I will leave a note down below if they are, but I do not think these are brand new shades. I know Naked Lunch already exists, but that one is actually very, very pretty. Then we have Mega Mocha, and wow, that is a deep, deep brown. Then there is Wanna Chat. So there is your deeper burgundy that swatched really, really poorly. However, we know swatches don't tell the full story, but that's a pretty bad one. Then we have Loading, and that's pretty. That's like a deep mauve-y kind of sparkle. And then we have Giga Glitz. And I think this might be one of their Dazzle shadow shades because it definitely swatches a little bit more dry. So quite pretty. Definitely a little deeper than I was expecting. Okay, let's look at the other palette I picked up, and this one is Rose Lens. So same type of packaging, just a different photo, and it's very, very pretty. So again, 6 shades right here. First we have DM Me. So that's pretty. Then we have Strong Connection. Then we have Grain, which is just like a matte. Then we have Pink.net. Ooh, that is pretty. That is very pretty. I was not expecting that. Then we have In Living Pink. I know this is definitely a pre-existing shade as well. So this one is almost like a NARS Orgasm kind of vibe. It is like a soft pink with a gold fleck. So then we have Cute on Mute. So that one is very, very sheer. But this one is the Pinky palette. I think I might actually like the Pinky palette better. So I am going to do one look on each eye so we can see how they both perform. So let's start with Rose Lens. I have already primed and powdered my eyelids. Okay, and I do think I am going to start with Grain. I'm not sure if this is going to do much for the crease. I'm getting a lot of kick up. The one thing I want to see is if these are the same formula as their singles that I love so much. Okay, so that shade takes a little bit of building if you want it to do anything, but let's go in to Pink.net. And I am going to tap off a little bit of that pigment on my hand. Okay, I do feel like this is blending quite easily. I didn't really expect anything less. I did expect it to be easy to work with, but with the shade this bright, I wasn't 100% sure. Okay, let's take DM Me. I think I'm going to take that one on a finger. Again, just my preference for shimmer shadows. I'm going to pop this on the center of the lid. I think I'm going to take the shade Strong Connection, which is this deep one right here. Even though it's metallic, I am going to take it on a brush, and I'm just going to tap off a little bit on my hand. I just feel like I need something more in that outer corner. Just retrying that first shade, the DM Me shade, with a wet brush, and it's working better. I'm just gonna take a little bit of Cute on Mute, and I'm going to pop that one on my inner corner. Oh, that's pretty. That's really pretty. And then I'm going to bring in just a little bit. First impressions are that I feel like this is standard MAC shadow quality, and that's meant to be a good thing. I do love MAC eyeshadows. I do think they are very buildable, which makes them easy to work with for people who are newer to makeup, and also people who in general are just prefer a lighter wash. I will say another thing about the MAC shadows is that they're metallics really aren't the most impactful. I've always found their metallics to be a little bit on the weak side, but because of that, they do tend to add a little bit of a shimmer without adding texture to the lids. So if you do have more textured eyelids and you enjoy a shimmer, MAC shadows might be a really, really good option for you. All right, let's dig into the Embedded in Burgundy palette. Let's jump into this first shade right here. I'm going to use this one as my crease shade. I do think this palette does have better, it's definitely going to have a little bit more depth, but I do think it's got better shades for those of us who really like to build the crease, define the outer corner, all those types of things, because it does have 3 mattes as opposed to 2, and it actually has a bit of a range. This shade is really, really nice. I would definitely say this is a shade that's been missing from my singles collection. And again, the shade is quite powdery. Not all of the shades are powdery, but some of the mattes definitely have a lot of kick up. I do like how that brown has a bit of a burgundy undertone. I think that's pretty. For the sake of using as many shades as possible, I'm going to go into Wanna Chat on that outer corner. It's a very, very rich burgundy brown. I'm just going to grab my crease brush. This shade is definitely very pigmented. I think I want to add the littlest bit of Mega Mocha, and I think I'm going to focus this along the outer lash line just to give a little bit of something there, and then I'll just kind of smudge it up just to give some added depth around that lash line, but not too much. We can always add more, but we cannot take away. And these colors are actually quite rich. Now I really want to go into Loading, and I'm going to take that on a wet brush. This is very much reminding me of a shade I do already have in my collection, but I will show you a comparison afterward. And I do love this shade. I do love this type of color. I think the plummy shade can be very flattering on blue eyes. Okay, I think I'm going to take Naked Lunch, which is this one right here, for the inner corner. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Giga Glitz, not too much, but I'm just going to take a little bit on a finger. I think this is supposed to be one of their Dazzle shadows. And then I'm going to pop that right over top of that lid shade just to lighten it up. I do like that. Okay, let me pop off camera. I'll pop on some mascara and I will be right back to share my final thoughts. All right, so here are the final looks with mascara, and I like them both. I think I preferred this one a little bit more. It gives me that rainy day, cool tone kind of vibe, and I'm just partial to a kind of like a mauve eyeshadow look in general, although I really do like the pinky side as well. Let's talk about some comparisons. So with these palettes, I really don't think they are unique by any means, but the packaging is very pretty, the packaging is unique, and MAC shadows I think have their own reputation, so they have that going for them. So Rose Lens is definitely a more pinky, purpley kind of palette. The one shade in particular, which is in Living Pink, which is this bottom pinky shade right here, I think I said when I swatched it, it gave me very much a NARS Orgasm type vibe. So I pulled out the Orgasm Rising eyeshadow palette from NARS, and they're pretty similar. I mean, the NARS has more of a sheen to it. This is the Orgasm shade in the NARS palette. I'll show you both. The MAC definitely has more kick up. So this is in Living Pink from MAC, and this is the NARS. So the NARS definitely swatches better. The MAC has a little bit more of a pinkiness to it, whereas Orgasm is more peach, but honestly, I don't think you would notice much of a difference on the eyes. And then the only other palette that I really wanted to look at was the Natasha Denona Love Face palette, because that bright pink kind of made me think of this, but I think the pink is more of a mix of these two and not identical. The mauve shades aren't dupes for each other either, so they weren't as similar as I thought. I did also pull out my Natasha Denona Retro palette. I don't think there are any identical matches in here, but I think you can tell by looking at this that aside from that bright pink, you can get a very, very similar look from the Retro palette. But other than that, I don't have anything that is exactly like this. And then really quickly looking at the Embedded in Burgundy palette. So this one, I think it's pretty easy to find dupes for some of these shades, in particular Mega Mocha. Very pigmented, surprised me from a MAC perspective. Naked Lunch is also a really beautiful champagne kind of shimmer, but really not unique. I'm pretty sure we all own a palette with something similar to Naked Lunch. This shade here is the one I put in my crease that I really, really enjoyed. And I wanted to compare to the ABH Norvina because this is a palette that has a ton of browns that pull purple. So on this side we have the MAC comparisons, on this side we have ABH, so the ABH definitely pulls a little bit more purple and burgundy than the MAC. However, these two shades ended up being very similar. This is this first shade here from MAC that I used in the crease, and in the ABH palette it is the shade A4. So pretty similar on that one, but the shade that got my attention the most is the shade Loading, and this is like a really pretty mauvey metallic. And what draws me to this one is from the Pat McGrath Divine Rose 2 palette. It reminds me a lot of this shade, so I wanted to see them side. Whoa. Okay, so very similar colors, but obviously the Pat McGrath packs a lot more punch. I have never swatched MAC side by side with Pat McGrath before. I love both brands and I think they both have very different things to offer, but that is the shade it reminded me of most. So overall, these shades aren't particularly unique to my collection by any means. However, I love having these cute little MAC eyeshadow palettes. These are definitely color stories I'm going to reach for. So yes, I have some similarities in my collection, but I will definitely enjoy them as they are. I love that they are simple little 6 pans. They don't overwhelm me with all of the color options. They're going to be great for travel, things like that. So while they're not the most unique color stories in my collection, they do each have their own thing to offer, and I think they're both special in their own way. Which one do I like more? I think I like the Embedded in Burgundy more. It's just more the type of shades that I go for. I do think these little palettes are up to typical MAC quality. Like I've mentioned, MAC is just a classic artistry brand, and their eyeshadows tend to be a little bit lighter on the pigment side so that they are much more buildable. And I stand by my statement, if you do have more textured lids, you may appreciate MAC metallics a little bit more. They do not give the impact that, say, something like a Pat McGrath does. They're very different formulas and they offer very different things. So whereas the MAC metallics will give you a little bit of a sparkle, but they're not going to enhance texture, whereas I find the Pat McGrath shimmers definitely can. So for that reason, I think these are really, really pretty. If you are wondering if they are up to MAC's typical eyeshadow quality, I definitely think they are. Again, lighter on pigment, but that has always been MAC style, and they're easy to work with, very blendable. I did find a little bit of kick up, but I also think that is pretty normal compared to my palette of singles. So I like these. I think they're really, really pretty. I would love to see them come out with a lot more of these, so I'm definitely going to be enjoying them. And if you like your shimmers to have a lot of impact, you probably aren't going to love these. But if you prefer a softer metallic shimmer shade, I think you would really enjoy these. And like I mentioned earlier, the one thing that is definitely different with MAC's metallics is that I always put my metallics on with a finger. I find that's just always the best method for me no matter what, except when it comes to MAC. Their metallics tend to work better with a wet brush. That is it for me today. Let me know down below if you're planning to pick any of these up. Are you still a fan of MAC shadows? Are you not? Let me know. I love hearing from you guys so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!